All right, I am going to go over chapter 9, lesson 3 on area of a trapezoid. Now, just like all the other lessons on area, we are going to follow the steps of writing the formula, substituting, and solving. So we've done these before with PSSA power, so this shouldn't be too much new in example 1. But check it out as we go over it. So it says find the area of the trapezoid. Remember, area of a trapezoid formula is 1/2 times the height times base 1 plus base 2 in parentheses. Now to substitute, you got to remember where each of the numbers are. So its area is 1/2 times the height. Now the height here is 7 times base 1 plus base 2. And the bases are here and here because they're parallel. Times 5 plus 12. So that's what step 2 should look like. Then step 3, all you have to do is type this in your calculator. The only thing I would say is make sure when you're typing it in, do not forget your parentheses or you will get the wrong answer. And when you type this in, you'll get area is 59.5, so 59.5. And the unit, since the problem is in inches, it's going to be square inches because area is always square inches. So example 1 is just a basic one. That shouldn't give you problems if you have the formula. Now when we get to example 2, we'll just show you another example. I won't write it out, but you can watch here. So, but I will circle or highlight the steps as well. So first off, you'd write your formula. Right here is where they did that. Next, you would substitute your numbers in. So we have area is 1/2 times 9.8 times 7 plus 12. And if you look here, here's the 9.8 is your height, which they have right here. Base 1, base 2, 7 plus 12. Next, now look at this step here. You don't have to worry about this because they, I guess, aren't using a calculator. So they actually simplified the 7 plus 12 to get 19, and then they rewrote it. Now, I would just type this in the calculator, and you will get the answer, 93.1. Remember, since this problem is meters, you want to have 93.1 square meters. And again, the shortcut for writing that would be m with the exponent 2. All right, so now, here's what you're going to do. You are going to go down, and I want you, since we've kind of done this before with PSSA powers, I want you to just work on A, B, and C on your own now. So pause the video, do all 3 of those problems. When you're done, restart it, and we'll see if you got everything right. Okay, go ahead, guys. Okay, so you should be done with A, B, and C. Make sure you're just watching this to check your answers. Now, I forgot to tell you before I paused it, but you need to have your formula. You're going to substitute and solve for each one of these problems. So to save some time, I wrote the formula for A, B, and C over there. So if I'm looking at problem A, I see my bases are 11 and 14, and my height is 8. So I'm going to substitute those numbers in. Let me zoom out a little bit so we can see everything. So I have area is 1/2 times the height is the 8 times base 1 is 11 and base plus base 2, which is 14. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. So check and see, do you have these numbers in the right spot? 1/2 times 8 times 11 plus 14. Now type those all into your calculator, and you should have area equals 100 square centimeters, which is cm squared. All right, if you have A right, good. Now we're going to move on to problem B. Now in B, they throw some decimals at us, but don't get tricked up. So remember here, we have our height is 4, base 1, base 2 are decimal numbers. So I'm going to go up here in blue. I have area equals 1/2 times the height is 4 times base 1 is 2.5 plus base 2 is 4.8. Okay, so check that you have those numbers in the correct spot. Last, you just have to solve. Area is, now remember when you type it all in the calculator, don't forget your parentheses or you'll get the wrong answer. So you should have area is 14.6, let me get the pen back on, 14.6 14.6, and the unit is meters, so your area is square meters. All right, so we have A and B done. I'll even write these answers here. So we have 100 square centimeters, and we have 14.6 square meters. All right, and then we get down to problem C. In problem C, let me move it over here. I can make it a little bigger. I have my formula written, so I'm going to substitute. Area is half times the height is right here is 0.3. Now I'm going to use, because it's 0.3 in a decimal, I'm not going to use the dot. So I'm going to use parentheses for 0.3 to show multiplication. Times base 1 plus base 2. Base 1 is 1 plus base 2 is 0.5. Okay, so double check that you have this written. Half times 0.3 times 1 plus 0.5. Then type it all in the calculator. Don't forget your parentheses, and you should have area equals 0.225. And since it's feet, your area is square feet. And I'm going to write that on the line here, 0.225 square feet. All right, so if you messed up anywhere in A, B, and C, make sure you make your corrections before we move on to this next one, because this next one is missing dimension, and this can be a little bit trickier. But it's not that much trickier than area of a triangle. So I'm going to read it first. It says the trapezoid has an area of 108 square feet. Find the height. So we're missing the height. They give us base 1, they give us base 2, and they give us the area. So I'm going to start off with my formula, which by now you should have memorized because you've written it a bunch of times. Area is half times the height times base 1 plus base 2. Now I'm going to substitute everything I know in the right spot. So for example, they gave me area is 108, so the 108 gets substituted in for A. Times equals half times the height we don't know, so that stays a variable, times base 1 and base 2 we do know. It's 12 and 15. So 12 plus 15, and don't forget your parentheses. So now, before I do anything else, I'm going to do some simplifying. So right here, I know to simplify, I can add the 12 and 15 together, because they're in parentheses, do that first, and then I can take half of that number. So that's what I'm going to do. Now you can do this in 2 steps, or you can do it in 1 step. I guess maybe I'll do it in 2 steps so you can see it happening. So I'm going to start with simplifying the 12 plus 15, and they simplify to 27. So come on, get rid of that. All right, to 27, and the h is still there, and I have the half times that. Now remember, because of the commutative property, I can actually do the half times the 27. So I'm going to simplify that. So half times 27 is 13.5. So I have 13.5 times the height, and I have 108 equals that. I should have written that 108 equals up here as well. So let me just show you again what I did. I simplified the 12 plus 15 to get 27. Notice everything else stayed the same. And then I found half times 27 to get 13.5 times h. So now I have that one number. So the last thing I have to do is just solve this equation. Divide by 13.5. Divide by 13.5. And if you do 108 divided by 13.5, you should get an answer for the height of 8. Now, since it's the height, make sure it is not square units. It should just be 8 feet. All right, so we're going to go down. I'm going to start with D. We'll do that one together, and then you're going to try E. So let us move on over here. So in problem D, here's what they give us. The area, and I know because it says A equals, and I know because it says squared centimeters. They give us base 1, base 2, and the height is missing. So we'll start with the formula. Area is half times height times base 1 plus base 2. Then I'm going to substitute. The area is 24 equals half times the height we don't know, but we do know base 1 is 4 and base 2 is 12. Now I'm going to start by simplifying this. So I'm going to rewrite it. It's 24 equals half times height times 4 plus 12 is 16. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify this, half times 16, which I know is 8. So I'm going to rewrite that. Let me give myself some more room. 24 equals 8 times h. Last thing I have to do is solve it like an equation. Divide each side by 8. And I get the height is 3 centimeters, not square centimeters because it's only the height. All right, now if you get stuck on E, you can always rewind and look back how we got D. So if you are still writing this down, you can pause it and go through the steps to make sure you have your work. But now, here is your job. Your job is to do problem E and make sure you show all the work, and you're going to have to do some simplifying. So pause the video, do E, and then restart it to see how you do. Go. All right, so let's see how you did. I'm going to go through problem E, and I'm going to do all the work in this nice little gray box because my work is getting kind of sloppy here. So let's start us off. The formula is area equals half times height times base 1 plus base 2. And I'm going to substitute. Area is 21, so you should have 21 equals half times the height, because the height is missing, and we have to find base 1 plus base 2. Now, I'm actually going to take a little shortcut here. Since I know the first thing I'm going to simplify is adding base 1 and base 2, instead of writing 2 plus 5 down, I'm just going to add those together now and write down 7. So that kind of took one of the steps out, which you didn't have to do. So then, I'm going to do this next step. I'm going to simplify again. So 21 equals, I'm going to do the half times 7, which is 3.5 times the height. And next thing I'm going to do is solve this equation. Divide by 3.5, divide by 3.5. And then all I have to do is solve. So cancel. Cancel. 21 divided by 3.5 is 6. So that means my height is 6 yards. Did you remember yards? And it's not square yards because it's not the area. All right, so hopefully you got through problem E, because we got one more thing you got to go through, and it's the example on the next page. Okay, we're going to go through example 4 just to show you a real-world example here and what you would have to do. We'll go through this one kind of quick. All right, let me get it all zoomed in. So it says, the shape of Osceola County, Florida resembles a trapezoid. Find the approximate area of this county. Now here's why they say approximate. Because if you notice, the county is almost a trapezoid, but because it's on the coast, you have these kind of, this isn't a straight line here. But we're finding by drawing a basic trapezoid over it, we can find pretty much what the area is, or be very close to it. So you'd start with your formula. Area is half times height, base 1 plus base 2. Then you'd substitute. Area is half times the height, here is 51, times base 1 is 48, plus base 2, 16. Okay, once you get that written down, all you got to do, type that into your calculator, and you get 1,632. Now remember, this is in miles, and since we found the area, it's going to be 1,632 square miles. And if I were writing it, I would just write it mi squared to save myself a little bit of time. So just like we've been doing, just they threw it in a real-world example. All right, your job is to finish whatever your absence sheet says to do and ask me any questions when you're ready to hand it in. Thanks.